So
Okay.
I'm here with Tre Kelley, former All-Met from Dunbar High School, former South Carolina University point guard. Please introduce yourself to the people, sir.
Tre Kelley, Washington, D.C. native, Dunbar High School from 1999 to 2003, University of South Carolina from 2003 to 2007, and from 2007 to the current moment, I've been a professional basketball player.
Okay, thank you. And can you just take us back, since you've had such a long career so far, can you just take us back to your beginnings? When did you start to play basketball and exactly where?
My start was about age of 10. I started at the number 12 Boys and Girls Club, and that was in the Brentwood area of Northeast Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
Coach named Ernie Clark actually just rolled by one day, and he had a little height on me at the time for my age, and he thought I could be a basketball player, so he asked me to play, and I started playing 10 and under, and my first game was at the number 10 Boys and Girls Club over there in Northwest off of 14th and Clifton.
hmm And how'd that game go? Do you remember any details about that game?
I remember that game well. It was, it was new for me, but I probably used my imagination a lot at that time, and it was almost like it came second nature in a sense. I wouldn't consider myself a great basketball player or even having any aspirations of being a professional basketball player or playing at whatever the next level was at that time. But the game actually did come natural to me.
hmm And so that first kind of boys club game, I guess you probably played boys club or rec ball for a little while after, right?
Yeah, I did. I pretty much stuck around with the number 12 Boys and Girls Club. I played a little what was it, YBOA basketball back then. I played pretty much a lot of basketball, man. Any basketball that I could play. It was different teams. It was neighborhood tournaments. I remember Eastern Branch Boys and Girls Club. There used to be tournaments down there.
hmm
I was just playing a bunch of basketball after that. I was gaining a passion for it. I was playing football also with the number 12 Boys and Girls Club, which is now Beacon House Falcons. We began the number 12 Falcons back then.
hmm
So I was juggling between the two sports, and basketball became a passion. So for me, I was just playing for the love of the game at that point, playing every day on the blacktop, even if I had games. Um, if we had games early in the day and I came back to my neighborhood and guys were out playing, maybe my friends, I would go out and play. So, at that time, basketball was a rich tradition in Washington, D.C. It still is, but blacktop basketball was incredible, and that's what we would do. We just play all day.
So what were some of the playgrounds? I know you're from the northeast side of Washington, D.C. I think you mentioned Brentwood.
Yeah.
What neighborhood did you actually grow up in, and what were some of the playgrounds that you played playground basketball?
Yep. So I grew up right at the intersection of 14th Street and Saratoga Avenue.
hmm
Um, there's a basketball court right on 14th and Saratoga Avenue, and that was basically the basketball court that I grew up on. If you walk right up the street, up the hill, there's we call it Brentwood Court, but it's basically Montana courts.
hmm
Um, we would play there pretty much. I mean, it's been a neighborhood tradition to play on Sundays every morning up there.
What
Um,
time? What time did you guys get started?
we would go like 8:39.
8:39.
For as long as I can remember. When I was 12, 13 years old, just going up there playing with the older guys, getting fouled, getting
hmm
thrown into the gate and arguing with dudes. And, one of the older dudes even punched me one time, just because I was fiery and I was probably out of line with them verbally.
hmm
So you get those kind of things when you're playing in that environment, but it helps you so much when you become, looking back on it, when you become a pro. The courage that you get to go into any arena in the world comes from that environment. To not get rattled, even in college, you're playing in front of 25,000 people every night at Kentucky, at Florida, even at the University of South Carolina at home. And, you're not bothered because, you've been in an environment where, you might be playing the game and you hear gunshots, you got to run back in the house.
Stakes are a little higher.
Yeah, so I learned a lot out there, man, and I enjoyed myself. But to continue that about the neighborhood courts, I mean, we would go down to Langdon Park. They had an inside rec and they had the outside courts, but mostly we would play on the outside, and Langdon Elementary School. If you take it up northwest a little bit, we would go on to White and Colors. That used to be right across the street from DUNBAR. Actually, still is across the street from DUNBAR. I mean, we pretty much anywhere. I mean, guys back then. I mean, you wanted bragging rights in a sense. You might go to school with some guys and they might be talking trash and just meet up at whatever court they name.
But I think you have the ultimate bragging rights now. I think you mentioned to me previously you have your own court in your name now.
Absolutely, man. That the court that I grew up on 14th and Saratoga is named after me. Probably be broken down soon because they're breaking down the apartments and stuff around there. Putting up whatever they're going to put up. But that's been named after me for about 10 years now, maybe even more. I think actually before I got out of college, it was already named after me. They used to have huge block parties that they used to call Tre Day. They would do this for like maybe 5 years, man. It was incredible, just the way that the neighborhood showed love for me, and all that I accomplished at that time. I mean, we won the 2 NIT championships in college, and they would just show love, man, and support whatever I was doing. And they would throw these huge block parties. It would start up Montana all the way down to Saratoga Avenue. Bands would play. There'd be some basketball tournaments, and it was a lovely sight.
So a lot of playground basketball for you early. You traveled around, I guess, your neighborhood. I'm pretty sure you ventured out, like you said, up to Northwest. Also for that, you are playing for the Boys and Girls Club, but also now I guess you're getting ready to go into junior high school, right? And you played in junior high school and you attended Alice Deal. We spoke about that previously. So I kind of want to go back and how did you swing that again to get into Alice Deal, being from the northeast side of Washington?
So at the time, when I was, I guess, finishing up my 6th grade year, I'd already knew a friend. He was a little older than me, of course, named James Brunson. Huge friend of the family. He was friends with my older uncle, and we were like brothers, all of us. And he had attended Deal and played for the basketball team already. So I would just hear some stories about the coach and about them winning games. I think they had won a championship with Greg Lomax and those guys. And then my cousin, who I grew up in the same house with, he went to Alice Deal. And I don't know, I just, had interest in going because I've heard so much about it. And there was what they called a community relations office in my neighborhood where I guess there was a guy named William Shelton who would, I guess, broker deals for jobs for people and things like that with connections that he had. And he did the same thing for people who wanted to go to different schools and create better opportunities for themselves. And I went to him and asked him about Alice Deal, and he told me that he knew some people up there and that he could talk to them about it, and he made it happen.
Okay. So Alice Deal, 7th grade and 8th grade, right?
Yeah.
And you played on a team, and I think you mentioned previously you won a championship in junior high school.
Yeah, my 7th grade year, we were 15-0, and won the city championship against Shaw.
And at that time, I guess 7th grade, were you starting to become into the player that you would be, or did it take a little bit more time after 7th grade?
Well, when I was in the 6th grade, I started to show some promise. Kind of doing things that I guess, wasn't being seen much from an elementary school kid. I played at Lucy Diggs Slow, which
Mm-hmm.
is now Mary McLeod Bethune. I think it's a charter school now. And that was from up to sixth grade. So I played elementary school basketball. And I was, I had some 20-point games. I think I had a 25-point game. So that, I was showing some promise there. And you kind of hear about, people, I guess, mentioning my name and just talking a little bit about, what I was able to do there.
Mm-hmm.
And going into the seventh grade, I had to try out that deal. It wasn't like I went up there and somebody had already talked to the coach. I had to try out, but I felt so confident about it that I didn't even worry about it. I just went to tryouts and did my thing, and my name was up on the board. Come practice time, and that seventh grade year was a great year because I came off the bench, but I
Mm-hmm.
played behind some really, really good guys. Um, these dudes were, in the ninth grade already. They were dunking in warm ups without touching the rim. Um, back then that wasn't, a regular thing. That wasn't a usual thing. So,
Yeah.
um, to see these, I mean, we had I think our entire starting five was doing that, even our point guard. So, it was crazy to really look at. And I'm in the seventh grade, just kind of soaking up knowledge. Coach John Spearman he was like a discipline guy. He really harped on discipline, whether it was on the court or off the court. I thought he had a lovely program and what he was doing up there, and it taught me a lot, in that first year. And most of my highlights of the season were highlights. It was just like crossing somebody up, getting
Mm-hmm.
the crowd going, making a layup. I might have 8 points, but the 8 points was off like spin moves and dudes kind of stumbling off the crossover or something like that. And it was exciting, for people to watch. And in a sense, I was coming into my own, but I still had a lot of work to do. And I think for the most part, I stayed focused on that.
So eighth grade year, I guess the ninth graders went on to high school. Now you're in the eighth grade,
Yeah.
and I guess now is the time you're really, really starting to come into your own. You had your highlights in the seventh, but now is, I guess, a better overall junior high school player in the eighth grade, right?
Yeah, because that summer going into the eighth grade, um, I'm basically the guy on my, it wasn't AAU, it was, still club ball.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great, great basketball league in the Tom Jones League um, at number 10 Boys and Girls Club back then.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the guys that you hear about that was maybe in high school in the 90s, late 90s, maybe even early 2000s, played at that league. All those Cardoza guys, Sheik Pearson and Eric Branham, all those guys come up through that league. They used to have an all-star game. I would make the all-star game every year. And I think I won MVP of the all-star game. And I really, really started to come into my own going into the eighth grade season. And that eighth grade season, was of course my best season in junior high school. And
Mm-hmm.
it allowed me to go out there and just play my game. I wasn't really coming out to the game much. Coach depended on me, and he had confidence in me. And I was getting my 25, 28 points. I think was my career high in junior high school. And it was just kind of following the flow and the rhythm that I had going, and that always took me somewhere. That all like, and I mean that by saying, it if I had it going, I would just follow it. I wouldn't try to rush anything, but I would just kind of do my thing within the flow of the game. But in the flow of the game, for me, sometimes it's just, getting to the rack, and I had my floaters and stuff back then. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
getting to the cup anytime I want. I couldn't shoot at all, really. I couldn't shoot at all, and I developed that spin move, and it wasn't patent yet, but I was doing things that kind of allowed me to understand and realize who I was becoming as a basketball player.
So eighth grade year, you're playing extremely well for Alice Deal. You probably could have gone to the ninth grade at Alice Deal, right?
Yeah, I could have. They wanted me to go back.
Hmm.
I didn't really intend on going anywhere. But I had an incident in school where I was in a fight, and it was towards the end of the school year. It was about a week left in school, and to be totally honest with you, there was this kid that I used to play one-on-one at lunchtime.
Hmm.
I would go to school with no money. I think he probably come from a better background than I did, and he would challenge me to play one-on-one, and he had like $20 on him. I tell him, play for your money,
Hmm.
and I would beat him every day. Buy my friends pizza and stuff like that. And
That's the playground in you.
right.
Hmm.
So, you know, he kept bothering me outside of the basketball court. Not
Hmm.
not something that I wasn't afraid of. I thought something may have been wrong with the kid or something. So I told him, look, man, just leave me alone. I think he pushed it a little bit too far one day, and I hit him. I hit him. He kind of fell down the steps, and they suspended me. Suspended me towards the end of the year. It was about maybe, like I said, about 6 days left in school, which is probably why I made a dumb decision like that. Knowing that it wasn't much school left, I had already got my grades to pass to the next grade. And that summer, well, not even that summer, I think I was actually still in school. DUNBAR was playing Gonzaga in the city championship game at the Verizon Center, or MCI Center back then.
Hmm.
And there was a guy with the Roving Leaders, the organization, the Roving Leaders, who helps the youth and combine a lot of things that can help the youth build. And we saw them, win this championship. I was with the guy. He took some kids to the game. And when I saw those guys celebrating, there was something about the energy that I felt from DUNBAR, from the school and everything. I had already heard a couple of things about the tradition, and I may have even watched the game on like DC 28 back then, the old high school sports channel. They used to show the DCIAA games.
Hmm.
And I mentioned to him, look, man, I want to go to DUNBAR. I think I want to go to DUNBAR. And he was like, I know the coach, and he knew Coach Gary Lampkins. He took me up there maybe like 2 or 3 days later, and I talked to Coach Gary, and he told me to come back. And when I came back, he was just like, look, we have some room on the team. You might as well just come on up. And I started going up there to work out with the team. And, it worked out for me. I enrolled to go into my 9th grade year at DUNBAR.
So your neighborhood school was what exactly was your neighborhood school?
My neighborhood school was Spingarn High School.
Okay, so
And I could probably get to Spingarn in 10 minutes from my house.
no chance for Sping on the Green Wave to get you.
Well, it was. Because these were my guys. I grew up with these guys. Doc Robinson. I mean, he used to come to our neighborhood to just watch us play blacktop ball.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of the tournaments. Dominique Jones was his point guard back then, and Dominique, was like one of the guys I grew up watching in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Nathaniel Holmes, who we call Fats, he played on that team too. And I grew up watching these guys. And we were all friends, even though I was younger. We were all good friends. And I actually told Doc that I would come to Spingarn. He wanted me badly, and I told him that I would come. But whatever I felt when I saw DUNBAR win that championship, it basically coerced me to go to DUNBAR without anyone ever saying you should go to DUNBAR. Nobody ever said that.
Mm-hmm. It was just something you felt.
It's something I felt, yeah.
So you are from the Northeast side. Now you're going to high school in Northwest. Was that well, you went to junior high in Northwest also, but that's a different part of the city.
Yeah.
Was there a transition moment for you, being from the Northeast side, going to the Northwest side to go to Dunbar?
No, not really. By this time, man, going into my ninth grade year, I had already kind of been like a guy who was just going to adjust. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't complain much about anything. I basically was just going to adjust if I had to go to school. Like when I went to Allensdale, I mean, I used to have to leave out an hour and a half before, maybe even more sometimes, just to get to school on time. I actually used to be late to school every day.
Oh, wow.
Because it was tough. It was tough for me to walk all the way down to Rhode Island Avenue Station, which is literally like a 15, 20-minute walk. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wasting 20 minutes just walking to the train station.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 15 stops from Rhode Island to Tinleytown, and who knows how long that's going to take some mornings. So I'm taking that commute. Then you got to walk from Tinleytown to Allensdale, which is maybe another 10, 15 minutes. You got to get up them long escalators.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it was just it was a struggle, just trying to get to school. But I did it. So going to Dunbar it was nothing compared to that. I still had to walk to the station. If I decided to catch the train, I would catch the train from Rhode Island Avenue Station to Mount Vernon, and maybe a 10-minute walk from Mount Vernon to Dunbar, or catch the P6, which basically takes you all the way down to New York Avenue, and you walk over to Dunbar 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 30 minutes at most for me to do that. So it wasn't a big transition. It was a better transition in regards to getting to school.
So ninth grade, you were on varsity immediately?
Yes, I played varsity immediately at
So,
Dunbar.
so what was that transition like to varsity from the junior high school competition for you that first year?
I was like hugely competitive, and I found every reason to be competitive. Um, Even in practice, I wasn't starting, so I would go at whoever the starters were. Um, I used to get into the heads of like the older guys who, just not trying to let the young guy come in and take over. I knew that, so I'm just going at these guys every day, doing stuff that I know coach, he has to play me. He has, so I'm coming in, I'm starting some games. Um, it was fun because now you start to hear the chatter, around town, you know, Tre Kelley's doing this, he's doing that. We got to go see him. So now I'm playing in these games, and I know people come to see me. I'm shaking hands with guys in the stands before the game, and it's a good feeling when you're wanted like that. The eyes are on you, so you kind of want to perform. Um, and that year was basically a coming out party for me. Um, Looking back on it and hearing about certain things that people say nowadays that I'm older, you know, these were some of my most legendary years. I know I've played a long career as a professional. My college career was stellar. But this is what everyone talks about. My ninth to 12th grade year, they talk about some of these games that I played in. And like I said, it was a coming out party.
So ninth grade, how many points did you actually average?
I was around 13, 14, I think 13.8 points a game.
Okay, so you were building.
Yeah.
So 10th grade year, what was that like for you?
It was a little better in regards to production. Um, Ninth grade year, I I was in the top 25 in the country. Going to these camps, I started playing with DC Assault organization AAU, and I started to kind of listen to the hype. I didn't feed into it. I wasn't soaked in by it, but I was listening a little bit too much. I wouldn't say it got to my head, but it caused me to, I wasn't playing as well as, I was hyped up to be, and I didn't like that. I didn't appreciate that from myself. I had already been working extremely hard, and you know, the competitive nature in me, it always allowed me to not settle for what was less than me out there on the basketball court.
So
And
10th. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so it's, you know, the way it started, I wasn't playing as well as I should have. And, you know, I had to fix that. So I did. You know, I started, you know, playing well a little bit before midway through the season, maybe like 10 games in, I started to turn it up.
So what were your averages like as a 10th grader? So 13 as a freshman.
Yeah, and I averaged 20 points, 5 assists as a 10th grader, as a sophomore.
So I guess you, as you said previously, you were nationally ranked as a freshman. Now
Yeah,
you're in 10th grade. You've actually improved your overall production. What was that
yeah.
summer like for you heading into the 11th grade?
So heading into the 11th grade year, there was a lot of things going on. AAU coaches, they're trying to basically get me to go to Oak Hill Academy. I'm still in the top 25 going into that year, but I don't know exactly what to do in regards to making these kinds of decisions. Mentally, you know, I was someone who thought that the best man win. I didn't really know a lot about the political side of basketball back then. I didn't know if playing at Oak Hill would help me more than playing at Dunbar. I thought, look, I'm playing in AAU in the summertime. I'm playing well against all these top point guards. So, you know, I don't have to go to another school just for someone to know that I can play the game.
Mhm.
I had verbally committed as a 10th grader to Syracuse. And I thought, look, I'm going to Syracuse. There's nothing to talk about. There was an understanding with, you know, even my family, the coaches for my AAU team, the coaches for, you know, my high school team at the time. And after that, it was just about sharpening my skills and trying to be ready in 2 years once I'm, you know, going to play in the Big East.
So you you verbally committed to the University of Syracuse. Why so early? And what made you kind of fall in love with Syracuse that you just knew that was the place for you to be?
So you hear about, you know, what happens at the Courier Dome. They have all these people that are just, you know, crazy about basketball, and you know they're supporting their team. Um, Troy Weaver was one of the coaches at the time. He was assistant coach. He was the guy who was recruiting me. He was in charge of basically my recruitment in regards to what was going on at Syracuse. Um, he was the connection to my AAU team, DC Assault, because he had previously been with DC Assault before,
Right.
and you know, he fell in love with me. You know, my game and you know my character. They wanted hard nosed guys to come there. You know, there wasn't many DC guys who had been there since Sherman Douglas left.
Right.
I remember them bringing basically a booklet to my house and having all this Syracuse stuff on as if I had already played at Syracuse. They were trying to lock a jersey number in at the time and everything. So, you know, it was fun. You know, it was really fun to go through that process and to know that I've watched Syracuse on TV, play Georgetown. I remember, you know, when Iverson was at Georgetown, I used to watch him when I was in the 6th grade, and they would play Syracuse, and it would be, you know, the game of the week or something like that for the Big East. And to know that I was, you know, even in the hat to have an opportunity to play at a school like this, I mean, it meant the world to me at the time. And you know, I was just enjoying the ride.
So let's go back for a quick second because you mentioned that your AAU organization wanted you to transfer to Oak Hill.
Yeah.
What did they give any particular reason why for the transfer since you were trending up, you know, nationally ranked in the national rankings and also you were productive at your current high school? What was kind of like their rationale for you transferring?
There wasn't much, to
Hmm.
be honest with you. Um, you know, being older, and I knew this a lot at the time when it was happening, but there was a lot of control that wanted to be taking place, you know, with something like that. And you know, I don't want to speak down about AAU basketball, and I'm going to speak mostly about my situation. But
Right.
playing for the AAU organization, you know, Curtis Malone was basically the founder. We had guys like Michael Sumner, Damon Handon, David Cox, who's one of my great friends. You know, he coached me most of the time. Him and Michael Sumner, they was pretty much my coaches, you know, throughout my entire stint with DC Assault. And they're, you know, they're still good friends of mine. Mike Brown was the person who introduced me to DC Assault, which a lot of people don't know. And Butch Cherry was one of my first coaches. So, you know, there's a lot of rich tradition in regards to the coaching staff and, you know, a lot of great basketball minds. But when it came to Curtis Malone, he didn't really do a lot of the coaching. You know, he was more so the broker in all this, brokering, you know, relationships from players to the schools and to the shoe companies and all this kind of stuff. And in my opinion, you know, he wanted to control my situation. He for sure saw that I had some kind of opportunity to play professional basketball. And at that particular time, it looked like the NBA. And it looked like a long career in the NBA because I was considered one of the best players in the country. And we know how that works. You know, when you are one of the best players in the country, that follows you for some time if you just keep working. And if it follows you up until, you know, your adult years, it looks good for you in regards to living out your dreams. And I think when I did not go to Oak Hill, that changed the landscape for me in regards to pretty much everything when it comes to the rankings nationally. I got significantly better. You know, my average went up almost 10 points in high school. I'm getting all tournament teams and MVPs in these AAU tournaments. Shooting the ball significantly better. I'm playing against some of the best players, and I'm playing well against them. We're playing the Oakland Soldiers, LeBron James' team, with Kendrick Perkins and those guys on the team. Atlantic Celtics with Josh Smith and Dwight Howard and all these guys. Jonathan Hargett. You know, we're playing these guys, and I'm standing out, and it's clear that I'm standing out. But my rankings considerably slipped, and no one knew what was going on here. It was questions all around, like, you know, what's happening. And it was clear someone was saying something to the right people that could either make or break me in regards to becoming maybe a McDonald's All-American and writing my own ticket to a scholarship anywhere I wanted to go, which would have been Syracuse, of course. And things started to kind of fall apart in regards to recruiting.
So, but the Syracuse decision was your own, the verbal commitment was your own decision, correct?
Yes, I mean, it was proposed to me, you know, by the AU organization and, you know, the people who were involved in that. But of course, it was definitely my decision to make. You know, me and Troy Weaver talked, and I definitely told him, look, I'm coming. There's nothing to talk about.
So you felt it was a good fit for you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
right.
playing for Boeheim, you know, playing for an historic university. The success that they had, you know, over the years, being the first DC point guard to come to Syracuse since Sherman Douglas, who I've known a long time. You know, through one of my best friends, Kurt Bone, who we all know, CEO of All Days. You know, that was the right decision. That was something that would have propelled me to where I wanted to go at the time.
So the AAU situation for you got shaky the summer of your 10th grade year going into your 11th, right?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So that 11th grade year, your first team All-Met. It's your first All-Met year, and you had some pretty incredible averages that year. It looks like you averaged 27 points. You shot 47% from the field. You averaged actually 8.7 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals.
Yeah.
You scored 30 or more 8 times. You had a 50 ball against another DCIAA team. So in that year, what really changed for you as far as your overall approach? Because it looked like you said you almost upped your average at least 8 points. Was it the competition you faced on the AAU circuit the summer before, or was it just more so your work ethic changed?
Well, I played at Dunbar, and there was a lot to be said about that alone. When you're going to a school that has this kind of tradition. I mean, when you went into the school itself and you went into the gym, you felt something different. You saw all these banners in the rafters, and for me, that developed a passion to just want to succeed at this school, and that was more fuel to what I already had, because I had extreme passion already to succeed for myself and succeed for my family, and really the city. Everyone was supporting me at this time. I mean, it was crazy, the people that just used to drive by my neighborhood and stop and shake my hand. Dudes may give me $100. I didn't even know. You know what I'm saying? People were just supportive of what I was doing, and they became fans of what I was doing. It was an incredible feeling. But what changed, or what had gotten better, was that now we changed coaches, and you bring on Lorenzo Roach, who's a former Dunbar player. And now he has the same passion, maybe even more, to succeed at this school. And we've already been good friends. He had been teaching at Dunbar since my 9th grade year, and I had known him because he had coached some youth game teams previous to me coming to Dunbar. So, I had already spent a couple of years with him, just as friends, and I played for him a couple of games. So, when he came to Dunbar, it was like he wanted me to prepare myself. He wanted to help that process. He actually knew a lot of what was going on within the AAU organization. He knew that I really wasn't being treated well. I was the person who was working harder than anyone else that I had played with at that particular time. And he knew that they just had to just keep dirt off my name, and then I would have been fine. I mean, I ended up fine anyway, but what I'm saying is, I'm talking about All-American, McDonald's All-American, go to any school I want to. That's what should have happened if we're talking honestly. And he wanted to make all of that stuff right. So he didn't mind me going out there and just playing my game. And now you're talking about a better shooter. So now I'm not only just getting to the basket, I'm hitting 5, 6 threes. I think my career high was maybe 8 threes in a game at Dunbar. And, I'm doing whatever I want. My game is as polished as it has ever been at that particular time. And I'm showing that night in and night out.
So what helped you improve your jump shot? Because I remember before you said, especially at the junior high level, you couldn't really shoot. So what
So,
really helped you to, correct your jump shot?
so we'll have to go back in regards to the timeline a little bit, but I experienced huge tragedy in my life when I was in the 6th grade, or going to the 6th grade. My mother, was brutally murdered, and it was something that had devastated me. And I was playing for a coach at the time with we were just simply called the Panthers. It was a Maryland team. The coach had a lot of guys from out that way, but he was a DC guy, and he just used to come to pick me up. Called him Boo Boykins. That was his name. His real name was Darius, and he used to come pick me up, take me out to the practices. Actually, I think Jared Jack even played on his team a long time ago.
Oh, the NBA point guard.
Yeah, he played on
Mhm.
this team a long time ago before me. And when he had stopped coaching the team, he went to Delonte Taylor. And he explained to Delonte that I was in need of some kind of guidance, that I had just experienced, this loss, and that, I needed someone who could take me in a direction that I wanted and needed to go. And Delonte, we call him Peanut, he came in and did just that. The way he utilized his knowledge to connect with me was something I've never really seen before. And I mean, he did it with all my friends, all of my friends who were playing basketball. He used to take us to workouts. And, he did something that no one really knows about that was incredible for me. When I was in, from like the 8th grade on to, I guess, when I left Dunbar, all of the old guys used to play up at Fairmont Heights High School.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking Jeff Baxter that used to go to Maryland. All those guys that used to play at Maryland. I can't remember all the names. The guys who played with Lenny Byers, Delonte Taylor, Benny Nesbitt, Jeff Nesbitt, maybe missing some names, Skip McDaniels, all these guys. That's the boy Doug McDaniels' grandfather. All these guys would play on Sundays. And those were all lessons for me. So Delonte, he was just, I guess, looking at and eyeing into my game. I mean, he was studying everything about my game and trying to help me as we went on. So when I was in the 9th, maybe 10th grade, he was basically like, look, we got to do something with this jump shot. He told me, look, everything looks fine. It's coming off the way it's supposed to, but, you have to fix your fingers in the way it's coming off of your hands. And that little thing helped me. We went out to his, he had a basketball court in his mother's backyard that I guess he used to shoot on back in the day. Old court, ain't have no nets or nothing, right there by Langdon Park.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of showed me what to do. He told me to come back the next day. Came back the next day. I told him, look, it felt comfortable, but I don't think I can get it off the dribble. He showed me something else and basically showed me what would be my jump shot, throughout the rest of my time. We went to my neighborhood court and we shot a couple of shots, and that was in my 10th grade year. So my jump shot actually got a little better that year. I started shooting the ball a little better.
Mm-hmm.
But I hadn't really been able to practice it much because that was almost during the season. So going into my 11th grade year, I mean, we worked on it all summer. I was just shooting 500 a day, making 500 a day. That's what we would do every single day. And by the time I came back to, Dunbar, it was a different person. It was a different game because now I can stretch it out. Guys were trying to stop me from getting to the basket before, but what they would do is try to sag off. I was just crafty enough to still get to the basket. Now you're talking about a guy who can shoot it, and now you just pick your poison. You come up, I go by you, shoot my floaters, use my spin move, shoot pull-ups, or if you sag off, now I can shoot the 3, and that's adding another 7-8 points to my average.
And I think one of the things that shouldn't go unnoticed about that story, you probably never paid him any money to help you, did you?
Not at all.
He just actually did it just because he wanted to see you improve
Not
as
at
a
all.
player.
I mean, he probably spent his own money more than I never gave him a dime for it.
Yeah, and we're talking about a pro-level player who's giving, skills and tips to up and coming player, and that's very rare in today's day and age. We hardly ever see that.
It's different. It's different these days.
Yeah.
And I mean that's what was happening back then. There was an old coach that used to run all the tournaments in Northeast and really tournaments all over Washington D.C. Simeon Williams.
Yes, I'm familiar with Simeon.
Yeah, Simeon is sort of a basketball pillar when it comes to what he had done, in the neighborhoods all over Washington, D.C. And I always remember, guys like Peanut, guys like Benny, they would say that's where they got that from, helping these guys, especially from your own neighborhoods. I mean, I was 5-6 minutes down the road, in Brentwood, but that's basically the same neighborhood when you talk about Langdon Park.
Right.
So, I used to just go down there and work out with those guys. And what I was doing in high school was incredible. I mean, I was leaving school at 3:15, 3:30, go all the way to Northeast to Langdon Park with Peanut, work out, get a bunch of jump shots up, work on my handle, and go back to practice because, the girls would practice before us, so we had time to do whatever we wanted to do. And every day, even back in 8th grade, I was doing that. I was going all the way to Northeast just to work out and then coming back to school to practice. So my game was polishing every day. And, by the time I was getting to these games where I'm playing against Cardozo, I have 43 against them, 44 against Anacostia. It was like I was playing against boys in a sense because I was grooming my game all along.
Right. So 12th grade year, back-to-back all met.
Yeah.
28 points a game. Assists kind of went down a little bit, 5.6, but I guess, you required to score more.
Yeah.
Scored 40 points or more 3 times that season. And it looks like you committed to South Carolina that year. So can you kind of tell us what happened with the Syracuse situation?
Well, they basically just backed all the way off. Things had gotten extremely rocky within the DC Assault organization in connection with myself. And, they didn't help me anymore, to be honest with you.
Did you play that summer prior to your 12th grade year?
I did,
with
but
them?
it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
Okay.
And what happened was there was a huge event, going into my 12th grade year where I'm at ABCD camp. This is my 3rd year at ABCD camp, best camp in America at the time. All the players are there. I mean, you could probably count out, some players are probably retired by now, but if you talk about the last 5 years in the NBA, I would bet you that 25 players from that camp was in the NBA.
ABCD, and that's the Nike camp, right?
No, that's Adidas.
Oh, it was Adidas at that time. Okay.
Yeah. So DC Assault was Adidas.
Right.
And, I'm at this camp and I'm cooking, period. Nothing to talk about. I probably averaged somewhere around 19 points and like 6 assists, but you only play 2 quarters.
Right.
And in camp mode, that's how the rules are. You can only play 2 quarters. And I'm 19-6 in that short period of time. And I make the All-Star team. But it wasn't public yet. My coach, who, I guess, the camp coaches are all on the, they go into these meetings and everything and talk about whatever they talk about regarding the camp. And he came up to me, showed me the list. Look, man, you're on it. Looks like you're going to even be a starter. So I would have started with LeBron James. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
In this particular camp All-Star game. And that would have not only propelled me in the high school rankings nationally, but it would have made me a McDonald's All-American in hours. And Curtis Malone took me out of the game. He explained to me that he was trying to keep some guys with the organization that were kind of jumping around from team to team. And, of course, I didn't give a damn about that. It was heartbreaking, to be honest, because, when you go to a camp like that, any camp, you go to anywhere, you go to tournaments, you go to camps, you go to any game, you want to be successful. And you know what it's like. I knew what it was like to go to a camp like this and make the All-Star team. That means you're one of the best 20 players in a camp like this who has, 150, 200 players? and all of them are considered the best players in the country. And I'm considered the best of the best. I mean, that's what I wanted. That's where my competitive nature took me. And I wanted to succeed at that camp. I did succeed. I mean, it was clear what I was doing. You know, but from a political side, you know, that would have helped me for a long time in my life as a basketball player.
So let me ask you, you feel that you were pulled from that All-Star game because of your decision not to attend? You think that was kind of tied into your decision not to attend Oak Hill as well? Or had things just dissolved so much in that relationship that that was just another part of the, you know, the breakdown?
It's kind of both. It's kind of both in a sense, because what happens is the decision that I made not to go to Oak Hill was an indication that I wasn't going to be controlled. And they started to understand that. You know, they wanted me to go and live with people that were living in DC. You know, like, I'm going to go and live with somebody that lives 10 minutes away from where my grandmother lives. Why in the world would I do that? You know, why would I go and live with somebody? And I mean, what am I going to visit my grandmother on, you know, certain days, or like, how does that work? You know, that's not going to work. I wasn't a person that would have been pushed around, or just no one was making decisions for me but me. And they didn't know how to deal with a kid like that. You know, I come from where I come from. There's nobody pushing us around. There's nobody making decisions for us. You can't put some money on the table for anyone that I know that comes from where I come from, and then they're going to just make the decision that you want them to make, or do something you want them to do because you want them to do it. So I made the decision that I thought was best for me. You know, I had a family. My father was always around after my mother passed, but I moved with my grandmother. I needed her, she needed me. And that was something that, you know, I was comfortable with. You know, I was comfortable with my family. We didn't have much, but it was family. You know, home is where the heart is. And that's something that I believed in. So that basically indicated that they couldn't control me. And then that's why the relationship dissolved. And now, you know, I heard all types of things, like money was given to go to certain schools. Like Curtis called me one day and told me that I should have went to Kent State. Like, he was really trying to sell that. And I'm like, why in the world would I go to Kent State? I mean, you're talking about.
Is this after your verbal commitment to Syracuse?
Yeah, that had already been gone off the table, and he he was the person a part of that. He was the person that orchestrated all of that, orchestrated basically the demise of that commitment. So now you're calling me to go to Kent State. Something doesn't sound right. Like, what's happening for you to think that I should go to Kent State? And I'm not sure what happened. I heard there was 50 grand involved. I don't know. And, you know, people are going to hear this and I'll get calls, and I don't give a damn. But I don't have any love lost for those guys. Michael Sumner is definitely one of my great friends. I mean, when I see him, it's always love. David Cox, I talk to him, you know, during his season sometime, and he's not a part of that mindset that those guys had. You know, when I went to South Carolina, he was the one taking up for me. You know, I heard there was some conversations with the coaches, and Curtis was saying that I was in over my head for going to South Carolina. SEC was too athletic for me, and I wouldn't be able to get my shot off. Like, you know, who the hell are these guys? Who they think that I am? You know, I made so many marks in Washington, D.C. as a high school player that probably, I mean, I don't know if that stuff would be done again.
I kind of want to play devil's advocate for a quick second, all right?
Okay.
So on your assault team, any other DCIAA players, or you the only one?
Well, there were other DCIAA players for sure. There was some guys, DCIAA, and, you know, that lived out in Maryland, that were considered great players. And I,
on your team though?
On my team, yes.
Okay.
by the time so when I was in ninth grade, I played with like James White. I played with Tony Bethel. I played with there were some guys on that team basically that went to school, played well, became pros.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to talk down about the guys that were on my team when I was playing, 17 and under after that year.
Mm-hmm.
So 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year, I played with, different guys. There were, some were ranked nationally, some were committed to go to different schools. We had some younger guys that I think ended up at like Villanova. I think Dante Cunningham, he wasn't really playing a lot on our team. I think he might be still in the NBA. Dwayne Anderson, I think, played at maybe Villanova. So there were some guys, but the guys who were up in my age, no one panned out.
Well, I just want to play devil's advocate. So the reason I was asking you how many other DCIAA kids on that team, so I'm looking at this situation that you're telling me about. So they want you to live with somebody else in DC, right? Maybe they're trying to remove you from that Montana, Saratoga, Brentwood area, possibly because of that environment. Maybe. Right. The Oak Hill thing, okay, they can't get you to move to live with somebody else in DC to take you out of the environment. Maybe the Oak Hill school situation is another way to remove you from that environment.
Absolutely.
Also DUNBAR, when we think about it, not a knock against the school, great, especially academically as far as a public school, but sometimes not always the best environment also.
For sure.
So if you think about it now, Tre Kelley now and Tre Kelley at 17, 18 years old, do you think that maybe those decisions, those choices could have been made as a better decision for you?
Absolutely. I mean, let's be honest, because of the political side of sports, what the media thinks, going to Oak Hill, I'm probably on, ESPN before I even get to college. I'm playing with certain guys who would help me look good. I can help them look good. We probably would win a couple of national championships. And that media publicity would put me on some kind of pedestal. I don't know how high, but I would probably keep my top 25 ranking.
Right.
But the motive behind or the approach behind all of this, I think, was wrong.
So the approach was kind of what turned you off initially.
Yes.
Just they never really cleaned it up enough to kind of make you see the other side of it, possibly.
Yes, because it wasn't like, look, Trey, let's go to Oak Hill because, I mean, this school, I mean, you're going to be a McDonald's All-American, or you're going to be able to go to any school you want to. You won't even have to worry about, all-star games at ABCD camp. You won't have to, it'll probably propel you to the NBA. This will happen in regards to, the publicity and the things that will be behind you if you make this decision. It wasn't like, okay, let's go live with such and such on the other side of Northeast because you can stay away from danger in your neighborhood. Because, making the decision to move from somewhere, I was in danger just because I was in the neighborhood, but I wasn't getting into any trouble.
Right.
So it wasn't like, man, I think you're headed down the wrong path. But it was all for, I'm not going to say there, but it was all for, I guess, the benefit of everyone but me.
Right.
And when you hear that as a kid who has his head on straight, but also is pretty stern in what he believes in, then you pick up on that, and I did. And it wasn't like I was stubborn or anything like that, because I was literally asking these guys, like, you guys expect me to just leave my grandmother like that? What's going to happen with her? I did have my family, and they, everyone looked out for her, but I was in a sense her pride and joy, and I just didn't. I didn't think it was okay for me to just leave her like that.
Right. So the Syracuse thing falls through. You're having some issues with your AAU organization, which at the time was probably one of the most powerful AAU organizations on the East Coast, if not in the country.
Yeah.
So how do you, what happens with your recruitment at that point? Because now you're a senior at Dunbar, second time all met. What happens next for you?
So I mean, they got to a point where Syracuse was out, but there became maybe another top five,
Okay.
which was Georgia Tech, Miami, West Virginia. UConn was in the mix for a short period of time. Maryland, Georgetown, and I may be missing the school. But the University of Miami, what they would do is they would send assistant coaches and even Perry Clark. They would come up just to watch me work out, take me and my mentors to dinner. It looked like that would be the decision that I would make once the Syracuse thing fell through. Georgia Tech would come up to my school, check on my classes and all that kind of stuff, and just put me through some workouts alone with nobody in the gym. And ACC, both schools in the ACC, and it looked like those would be the two schools that I would choose from. I wanted for a second to go to University of Maryland with Gary Williams, but Gary wanted me to go to prep school for 1 year.
Okay.
It always felt like I would be wasting time if I were to reclassify or go to prep school. So I didn't like the idea. I wasn't high on Georgetown. I wasn't too high on West Virginia. I think Wisconsin came into the mix too. But Georgia Tech and Miami, it looked like, I would lean towards them. And I had a really great summer going into my 12th grade year. And they fell off too, just at the same time. And I don't care if I don't go to OQ. I don't care if I don't go and live with someone. That's not how it's supposed to be done. I mean, I wasn't a kid who was creating problems within the organization. My teammates, we all got along. I mean, I'm still friends with my teammates from back then. We all are, in a sense, best friends almost. So it wasn't anything like, I didn't smoke weed, I didn't drink, I wasn't going out doing the AAU trips. I was working hard. I was pushing myself, and everyone knew that about me. And it was incomparable when you talk about what anyone else was doing. So regardless of what happened within the organization, I felt like they sorted me down to all of these schools and created a bad name for me. And they just created whatever they created. It wasn't like anything they said was true. Like 6, 7 schools and a verbal commitment can't back off at the same time. That makes no sense. Especially with I wasn't getting arrested. I wasn't, you hear about kids that, he's a problem, his family's a problem, and all this stuff that happens within high school kids. That stuff wasn't happening with me. None of that was happening. I was working hard. I was pushing myself. I was one of the best players on the East Coast. And that's all. And that was, in a sense, taken away from me in my eyes. So going into my 12th grade year, the phone rings at my grandmother's house, and it's Rick Duckett, the assistant coach at University of South Carolina. And, he said that they wanted to look at me and they wanted to recruit me. And I gave them the phone numbers to Delonte Taylor and to Lorenzo Roach.
So they
And
help you with your recruitment going forward.
absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely, every bit of it. And I don't know what would have happened if I missed that call and they tried to call someone else to basically look for me or look for whoever was involved in my recruitment. Dave Odom scheduled a meeting, and we met at Union Station at the Uno's Pizzeria.
Hmm.
And he had Randolph Childress with him, his former player at Wake Forest. And, we just talked. And I was sold from there. It was 2 more visits. They came to my house, my grandmother's house in Northeast at the time. And I didn't even have to take the visit to know that I would end up signing. But I did.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I did end up taking the visit, but it was over with before that.
How influential was Randolph being a local guy in that meeting with you? Was he very influential, or was it more so Coach Odom and his actual selling of the university?
Yeah, it was more so Coach Odom. I was honestly going to play for Coach Odom and not going to play at the University of South Carolina.
Right.
Randolph, I remember thinking, okay, this is something that he would do that's important, basically to reel me in to go to South Carolina. And I
Right.
thought that was major, that he would call Randolph, an old player of his, to be involved in getting me. And I remember his words were, "You're our decision. So whatever decision you make, that's what we will react to. If you decide to go to South Carolina, that's it. We're not looking for any other player until you make your decision. If you decide to go somewhere else, then we'll start looking for someone else."
So
And
you were the priority.
I was a priority, and that was important for me. And everything that he said to me at my grandmother's table, to my grandmother and my father, was what reflected my 4 years at South Carolina.
So he stayed true to his word throughout those 4 years.
Absolutely.
So you're transitioning now from high school to the D1 level,
Yeah.
and you're a freshman. What were your freshman minutes like? How many games did you start?
I probably started like 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Probably started like 5 games,
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 games. I cannot remember how many minutes I played. It was I played. I played. There was some times where I led the team in scoring, led the team in assists. We did have a senior captain who was the point guard who I played behind, Michael Boynton.
Okay.
He's the head coach at Oklahoma State right
Yes.
now. Phenomenal leader. Honestly, I probably would have had issues playing behind anyone else. But it was great to actually play behind this guy and see how he operated as a leader and as a point guard. He even told me, like, look, you have way more talent than I would ever have. And when you get all the other pieces right mentally, you're going to be special. I remember that like it was yesterday. And he would just take me under his wing, and we would always have these talks, in the hotels on the road and things of that nature. And his tutelage was important for me as a freshman.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that not necessarily starting as a freshman and actually observing a senior, do you think that helped in your development throughout?
yes, absolutely. It's always good to start as a freshman. Come in and be the full-time starter. The 5 games I did start, I think, we played in the backcourt together. He wasn't hurt or anything. He still was on the floor. It was just my talent, I think, that was kind of making Coach Odom itch to just start me.
Right.
And that was towards the end of the season. I played pretty well that year. I had my games, but I knew that I would start every game after that. I knew that it wouldn't be an issue, man. Coach Odom, we probably started our relationship, after my freshman year. Of course, we had a relationship going into my freshman year, but we really became friends when I came back from my summer break going into my sophomore year.
And what changed in that relationship? What do you think made that change in that relationship?
I mean, you know, as a coach, these coaches, you have to be friends with your point guard. I think that's important. That's important. That gives the point guard comfort to go out there and be the coach on the floor. And I knew, and he knew, that I would be stepping into that role.
Right.
And it was important for me to know what he was thinking. That we wanted basically an open dialogue between one another, where he can say whatever he wanted, and I would listen. I wouldn't have any animosity to him holding me accountable, because you don't mind that when it's your friend, when it's one of those coaches that you don't talk too much off the court and they're just yelling at you. A lot of kids don't take it well.
Right.
They think you're fighting against them as a coach. They're going to rebel. But when your friend is telling you, look, man, you gotta get your ass in gear. This is what needs to happen out here. This is what I want. You're more comfortable with that. I don't think we ever had an argument.
So into your freshman year, heading back for your sophomore year, relationship is great with your head coach. You're stepping into the starting position. Did you prepare anything differently that summer prior to, or did you stay on campus? Did you come home? What did you do that summer?
Yeah, I came home for a little bit. Not long. I actually I don't think I spent more than a week home during my college years.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I would do is I would go home and work out, for 5 or 6 days, and just go back to school, because we had summer school and workouts down there. And I remember myself really trying to get in some great shape. I had gotten up to about 185.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad weight, but definitely more than what I weighed at DUNBAR. Like almost 35, 40 pounds more in a sense. So, I wanted to last games. I knew that I would be playing a lot, and I wanted to be in the best shape possible. So I was doing a lot of extra stuff. I went and bought like a weight vest. I was, running the steps in the stadiums with that on, and extra sprints, extra weightlifting. Just trying to get my body right, getting ready for that second year.
So sophomore year is here. You've trained differently than you probably ever had before. You've gotten your weight up, so to say, and now you're ready to take on the SEC. What was that second year like for you now as a starter? And
it was fun. It was fun because you're playing against a lot of top players, a lot of top teams. And I'm at this point, I'm still in the mindset. I'm coming from Northeast, man, and I'm looking up at the rafters in these different places, and I've never had the "I'm happy to be here" mindset. I wanted to come and make statements. So, playing against Rondo, you're playing against those great Florida teams, and LSU, Georgia, playing against Auburn and Mississippi State, and all these teams that you've seen over the years have much success. So it was fun for me to take on those challenges. I had some great players around me, so a lot of people would look at my scoring stats from back then and just say, "Oh, he wasn't assertive. The coach was holding him back, or he wasn't scoring much." But I didn't think I had to. My sophomore year, we ended up winning the NIT, and we had a great run. I think they took a 3-pointer back to allow us, I think, to go into the championship game of the SEC tournament. I think that would have helped our chances to go to the NCAA tournament. But I hit what I thought was a 3. But after review, they said that my foot was on the line. That's still up in the air, if you ask me.
Yeah, that was hard to believe,
Yeah,
even right.
Yeah, it's still up in the air, but it was, like I said, it was fun. Playing in these huge arenas, playing against these great players and great teams, and I was taking on the challenge every night.
So a starter sophomore year, junior year now. Are you starting to hear any NBA buzz possibly, or does that come senior year?
Towards the end of the SEC season, I started to hear some stuff about the NBA. Coach
Junior
Odom,
year?
yes.
Okay.
Coach Odom had relationships, of course, with NBA personnel. You know, he had been around the game so long that, you know, he has friendships all over. And I remember, you know, different guys coming to practice, you know, just to talk to me and talking to coach about me and just trying to see what kind of player and person I was. I enjoyed that year. That was our second NIT championship in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I thought I could have played better. You know, I thought I could have played better
In the NIT or that season?
in that season.
Okay.
I was stellar in the SEC tournament and the NIT tournament. I was all tournament team in both.
Okay.
Um, I was all tournament team at the Great Alaska Shootout that we had earlier that year. But I think I left a couple of games out there in the SEC season, and you know I could have been a little better. But I played my ass off. I played well,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, you know, it was another year where we had success. We should have gotten into the NCAA. You know, all of us still talk about that. We lost to Florida, which will eventually be the NCAA champions that year. We lost to them in the SEC championship game by 2 points on a Joakim Noah tip-in.
Mm-hmm.
But we beat them twice that same year. So we beat them home and away, but we lost to them in the tournament. I think 6 teams or 7 teams or something like that got into the NCAAs out of our conference, and we beat every team. We beat all of them.
Mm.
And so, you know, it was one of them things where, you know, we thought we could have done better as a team. I definitely thought, you know, I could have done better individually, but, you know, it was what it was. I thought I had a great year. And, you know, going into the senior year, that was actually a little bit more NBA buzz.
Going into the senior year.
Yeah, because after the NIT championship, a lot of NBA personnel was there. I never ever thought that I was a guy who could have left early.
Right.
Um, but Coach Odom had gotten some calls, and he started to be worried about me leaving after my junior year. I don't know if I would have heard some of this stuff personally. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't know what kind of decision I would have made, but he was definitely getting some calls. There were some different people, you know, just making some statements about, you know, maybe me being able to, you know, get drafted. I'm not sure, but I never had the mindset that I, you know, was going to go early. But there was some interest there.
So, little NBA buzz talk in your senior year. Which season did you lead the SEC in assists? Was that junior year or senior year?
I led the SEC in assists my junior year, and I was second in assists my senior year.
Okay. And you said those were, and in those 4 years, Rondo and some other really good players. I think Al Horford, Joakim Noah, any other
Yeah.
great players in the SEC during that time?
So you had Ronnie Brewer, who had a long stint in the NBA. Used to play with the Utah Jazz. Um, Corey Brewer, who played with Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Just mentioned Al Horford, Joakim Noah, Rondo, Randolph Morris, who played at Kentucky, Jody Meeks, who played at Kentucky. I think he's still in the
Mm-hmm.
NBA. You had Sundiata Gaines, who played at Georgia. He played a little bit in the NBA. Jamel Bradley at Kentucky was pretty good. Patrick Patterson, who's with the Raptors right now.
Yeah, the
Yeah, he,
four
yep,
man,
he,
right?
yep, he was at Kentucky. Um, Trying to think of the other school. LSU, of course, had Big Baby Davis, Brandon Bass on the same team. I think they both left after their sophomore years. Um, Auburn, I don't think they had too many guys. can't remember too many people off that team. Arkansas, I just mentioned Ronnie Brewer, who played with the Utah Jazz for a little while. There may be some guys I'm missing, but it was filled with a lot of talent.
So within that, your senior year, junior year, you made all SEC, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so there was a lot of talent in that league. So a little buzz growing for you in that conference, excuse me, a little buzz, NBA buzz growing for you heading into your senior year. Looks like you averaged 18.9 points a game. So you upped your scoring average, averaged 5 assists, looks like almost 3 rebounds, shot fairly well from the field, pretty decent for a guard from 3. So you're graduating now, and what is that draft process like heading into the NBA draft time?
Started to hear a little bit more about about the NBA. There was a lot of buzz, and I just didn't know how it would turn out. I just wanted to, prepare myself as best way as possible, and talking to agents and just talking to people who went through the process. I had Ronaldo Balkman. He left after my junior year, so I had him to talk to. Torrance Kinsey, who's one of my good friends from college. He had just gone through the process, and we had talked a lot of times about it. So I just wanted to know what it looked like. And there's the draft camps that they had, the pre-draft camps. I missed those because I played on a torn meniscus my entire senior season. So basically, not entire, but half the year I played on a torn meniscus, and I had to get surgery after the season was over. And I ended up missing the pre-draft camps.
So let's go back for a second. So you averaged almost 20 points on a torn meniscus as a senior.
Yeah, I tore my meniscus.
You didn't miss any games.
I missed one game.
One game.
And that wasn't my choice. I was trying to play, to be honest with you, but I missed that game. I'll take you into this story, I guess. It's definitely a huge part of my college career, a huge part of my life. I mean, this was huge and what happened. So December the 29th, you have those non-conference games, and sometimes there are those, just scheduled games where you pay some schools to come and play you at home, and you beat them and move on. So we're playing like Jacksonville, and I tear my meniscus. Guys cutting across. It wasn't even a freak injury. I didn't fall. Kind of kicked my foot out a little bit and just felt some discomfort. And they take me back to the locker room at halftime just to look at it. And they kind of maneuver it a little bit just to see what's going on. They didn't say anything about an injury. They just told me I can go back out and play. But that I did need an MRI the next day. So I finished that game. I think I maybe finished with 22 points, 6 assists, if I can remember right. And I thought I was fine. I knew I had a little discomfort, but I didn't think of anything that would keep me off the court. So did have the MRI. The day after the MRI, I get a call from Mark Rogers, who's the medical trainer, and calls me, "Look, Tre, you need to come down here now." Serious voice. Doesn't say anything else. He hangs up the phone after he says that, and I walk down. I walk down to the arena. Walked into the training room. I see some guys in there, long faces. No one looks happy. And everyone, looks pretty worried. And he turns to me and tells me that he's sorry, but my senior season is over with and that I tore my meniscus. And that was crushing, to be honest with you. This is my senior season. I'm trying to do everything that I can to live out my dreams, to provide for my family. That's what I went there for.
Right.
From a basketball standpoint. And I didn't know what that meant to those dreams. I didn't know if it was over with. I'm not a quitter, so I just didn't know what to think. So I just left out. I left out. I made some calls, called my uncle, sick to his stomach. He couldn't talk to me. Told me, look, we'll talk later. I called Kurt Bone, one of my best friends. I've known him since I was 13, 14 years old. And I don't think we was on the phone 10 seconds. He couldn't take it. Told me, look, I'm gonna have to talk to you later, man. Delonte Taylor did the same thing. I mean, he's a guy who supported me all the way. They probably watched the game, the last game. They would call me after the games.
Mm-hmm.
And they all were distraught. I was distraught.
They were hurt for you.
Yeah, they were hurt for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I called my grandmother last. And I set it up that way because I knew she would have something to say.
A different message.
A different message, yeah. She would have something to say. I didn't know what. Maybe sorrow, or maybe, just something in the same sense of what, my 3 previous calls were. But it was nothing like that. She sounded, for some reason, optimistic. And told me that, look, we'll talk later. Don't worry about it. We'll talk later. I'll call you around 9 o'clock. And I didn't really think of, what she would have to say to me later on. I just, was going to wait for her call. We had a chaplain with the basketball team at the time, Jack Easterby. He was influential in my spiritual walk. Great guy, man. One of the best people you could ever meet. And he had some guys over around 7 o'clock that evening. And we just prayed about, to see going on. My teammates felt sorry for me. I'm sitting there. At the time, I'm still limping. The placement that my meniscus is in at the time prevents me from bending my knee or straightening my knee all the way. So I don't look like I can play any basketball. So they left, and I just stayed around watching TV for a little bit. And my grandmother calls me, and I answer the phone, and hi, Grandma, how are you? She says, I'm fine. How are you feeling? I said, I'm feeling fine. My knee doesn't really have any pain, but it's a little discomfort there, and it's kind of out of position right now. And she says to me, well, I want to tell you to not get the surgery, that you should play for the rest of the season. And I didn't know, I didn't know what to even think at the time, because I've known this woman my whole life. I've seen her operate in, some ways that you probably never seen anyone operate, for sure. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, she went with the godly route, and I'm sitting here with my knee. I can't play like this. There's some clicking, and I can't play. But knowing her, I knew something was behind it. And she went on to say, look, the Holy Spirit told me to tell you to just play, to not get the surgery, that you should go on and just play. And she didn't even really say anything else. And I told her, okay. And at this particular time, it's about 9 o'clock. At 5 in the morning, I'm getting picked up by Mark Rogers, who's the medical trainer, to go to the hospital to get the surgery. So I don't know what to even tell them. I don't know what to say to my grandmother, but okay, Grandma, I'm okay, fine. That's the only thing I could say. So we hung the phone up. That's basically how it went. We hung the phone up. I was sitting in my bed, and as I kind of leaned back, basically to lay down, that same maneuver that they did with my knee at halftime of the Jacksonville game is what I did after we hung up the phone. And it went right back in.
So did you do that intentionally, or was it something that was done unintentionally? Excuse me.
Kind of both, but I was kind of thinking back. So they already knew I tore my meniscus at halftime of the game. They knew it. That's why they did that. So they really didn't need an MRI. But for them to put it back in place for me to go out and play made it a possibility that I can do that.
Right.
So all of that kind of flashed into my mind as I'm hanging up the phone. And I did it. And it went right back in. Called the chaplain of the team and told him what happened. And he didn't believe me. He's the chaplain. He don't believe. He's not believing anything I'm saying. He's like, man, you got to get surgery tomorrow. I get picked up at 5 in the morning to go to the hospital. And when I get in the car with Mark, I tell Mark, look, Mark, I'm not going to get the surgery today, man. I'm going to play. Mark looked at me like I was crazy. You know, he looked at me like I might have been smoking or something. You know, literally. He didn't even say anything. He didn't respond to that. He looked at me, put his eyes back on the road, drove to the hospital. Got to the hospital, automatic doors opened up. He kept walking. I stood there once we got into the lobby. And as he's walking, I stopped. He looks back and like, you know, what are you doing? I'm saying, I'm going to play. You know, this is what's going to happen. I'm not going to get the surgery. I'm going to play. And he went up to talk to coach. No, we had probably stayed down there another 5 minutes. I guess he had already sent a text message to them saying that we were on the way up. But after about 5, maybe 7 minutes, Coach Odom comes down, and I can see him through the glass, basically saying or asking, "Where's Tre?" And comes over to talk to me. You know, we're talking about the situation. I told him about the conversation I had with my grandmother. I told him I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to play. And he respected her so much that he was like, "Look, I'm not going to go against your grandmother. You know, we're going to see what happens. I'm going to talk to the doctors." And they try to get the doctor to come down. The doctor came down, looked me into my eyes. He was like, "Look, I know what's going on here. You're talking about your grandmother called and said what she said. And I'm telling you, medically, you can't play. There's 0% chance that you can go out there and play." I mean, this is what he told me. This is the doctor. He's in his scrubs, you know, ready for me to go up there and get the procedure done. And he's telling me face to face that I cannot play. And I'm telling him, I'm going to play. You know what I'm
Battle
saying?
of wills.
Right. So they gave me a week off, 7 days. And, you know, just iced it every day. My body didn't swell. You know, my knee didn't swell at all. So they had a workout. They scheduled a workout after the 7 days. And I did everything that I have been doing, you know, maybe a little tired because I haven't done anything. But, you know, I was jumping, laying it up, cutting, whatever I needed to do. And, you know, I missed my only game within that 7-day period. And I went back out to play. I played against Kansas. Was a little tired that game.
So the conditioning was off a little.
Yeah, that was pretty much the only problem.
Any discomfort?
But we
Any
started.
discomfort after the game?
No, it wasn't any soreness. Maybe a little tendonitis building up because, you know, I couldn't really do anything. They told me I couldn't squat, couldn't do a lot of weightlifting. So maybe weakening a little.
Okay.
But, you know, we started the conference season, I think, against Kentucky. I had 25. So it was like, okay, let's just do it. I mean, this is what if this is how I'm gonna be playing, ain't no use of worrying about it. Ain't no use of thinking about it. Let's just go out there and play.
So for some people or some players who have injuries, they tend to when they're trying to play through something, they tend to kind of adjust their game, adjust the speed that they play so that they don't risk further injury. Did you do that, or did you still try to go to play your game, or did you kind of adjust it somewhat?
Yeah, I was playing my
Mm-hmm.
game. The speed was down a little, so I had to kind of improvise certain moves that I would
Mm-hmm.
make. Um, I probably became more polished in certain things I was doing. It was more pull up J's. I was coming off the ball screens a little tighter. It was taking more advantage of my opportunities to score and just instead of just trying to out talent somebody to get a bucket
Mm-hmm. And
as I was doing
and that
before.
did that experience kind of linger over to when you were healthy? Did it change? Did it change
Absolutely,
your pace somewhat in playing?
absolutely, because I was having success. So now you become healthy after the season is over, and you're in better shape because you can lift and you can do all the things that you need to do to fix your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was all coming together.
So you had that surgery after your senior season, so you weren't able to participate in any NBA pre-draft camps. Um,
I was
you were
not.
able to get healthy after the surgery and then begin your workout process. So I guess you had workouts for some NBA teams.
Yeah, so I worked out. My first workout was the Miami Heat. So I was in Miami for a couple of days. I worked out with them. Dallas Mavericks, Portland Trail Blazers, Sacramento Kings, Pacers. Um, I'm missing somebody. Utah Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out on the West Coast for like 2 weeks, so I may be missing a couple of teams. I was out there for some time.
And
Um, so I may be missing another team out west, or maybe a team or two out west.
so after your surgery and you're going into this draft process, what were your workouts like to prepare you for that? Who did you work? Where did you have a special trainer? Anyone you work with?
Yeah, so I went up to New York and I spent maybe a month and a half in New York before all of the pre-draft workouts started. I don't know if you remember this name, but he was a DC area guy, played with the Phoenix Suns back in the day. Mike
Yeah, he
Morrison.
was he was just here maybe 2 weeks ago. I believe he's a high school coach now in South Carolina. He came up for the
Okay,
DeMatha tournament. Hmm.
okay, yeah. So um, he was working with my agent at the time, Eric Fleischer,
Hmm.
and Eric had him come up to New York and train me for that month and a half.
Okay. And
So I did that and kind of started that pre-draft process where I would go and work out with these different
so
teams.
what was your feedback like coming out of those workouts leading up to the draft from the teams? Did you receive any positive feedback?
Yes, Nate McMillan was with Portland Trail Blazers, and he was pretty high on me. I remember he mentioned to me in a we had like a meeting together where he told me that Dave Odom had said that I was the best player he ever coached,
Mm,
and I was amazed by that. He had coached Tim Duncan and Randolph Childress and Rodney Rogers and those guys.
right.
And Nate McMillan was like, I agree. So I was I was high on their list in regards to getting drafted. I didn't know exactly how that would work. But Miami was said to have wanted me at 20. And the feedback was great from them. They wanted to schedule a second workout, and they wanted me to come back and work out with them after my first workout. And I guess the second workout never happened. I don't know why.
Hmm.
There were some things that were said. Maybe my agent didn't pursue it as hard. I kind of learned some things within that process. Agents kind of, if the guy can get a lot of money overseas, they tend to go with that more than the NBA thing because they make a little bit more money if you get a big deal overseas. I remember being proposed a big deal overseas, and that's what ended up happening. I didn't get drafted, and that was devastating. Of course, you put in all this work to propel yourself to either walk up on that stage or just hear your name called. And though it was devastating, it was something that, it fueled me to want to do better. And, I did end up going overseas for the first
So let's
year.
go back a little bit. So you kind of heard some rumblings that you may go in the first round and I guess late in the second round prior to the
Yes.
draft. So I know that we talked about this before, that you had a celebration set up for you in the DC area if you were to be drafted. So we know that, there was a large gathering, but you weren't actually drafted and you still showed up to your family, to your friends, to your neighborhood, even after that experience. And I know it was extremely difficult because they may have felt like, you may have felt like you may have let the neighborhood or your family down. But can you kind of walk us through, like, how do you assure them that you have no quit in you and that you're going to continue moving forward? How did you kind of convince them of that at that moment?
Well, it was actually, they supported me, man. I mean, it was like, I remember that night, I walked outside. Everybody was watching the draft. They were just waiting for my name to be called, whether they were at the place where it was being celebrated or not. Just in the apartment buildings, guys were just rallying around the TVs, just waiting. And everybody kind of came outside. People were devastated because they had been supporting me all this time. When I used to play I was playing on ESPN a lot in college. I used to get calls, from those 40 people in the background yelling, just it's just one of them things. And it was just something about my ties to the people in my neighborhood.
Absolutely.
That, I didn't have to show them that I was strong enough. They were even saying things like, "Man, it's probably better you didn't get drafted because you can get a if you go second round, your contract is not guaranteed." Like, they were trying to make stuff up to, I guess, even make me feel better.
Which is great and appreciated.
Right, and that's what love does, and that's what we all kind of been through different things, whether it was individually and as a neighborhood. We all attended those funerals, stuff together. And it showed that night. Let's put it that way. It showed that night with their support for me. It's grown men crying, man. They were crying. To the fact that I didn't get drafted, and instead of it hurting me, I was more embarrassed for them because I honestly, and a big part of me wanted to do it for them. I figured, look, I can go and play overseas. I can go and do different things as a professional basketball player. I'm going to play. That'll help myself. That'll, maybe allow me to still be, financially stable and things of that nature. But I wanted them to experience it. I wanted to come back home, whether I played with the Wizards or played against the Wizards, and have 150 tickets. You know what I'm saying? Just like I had in New York when we played at Madison Square Garden for the NIT championship. It was 150 people there from DC.
Wow.
Seriously. They didn't even know what to do with, as far as the tickets. I think I had to even purchase them. The school had to purchase them.
That's a lot. That's a lot of support.
Yeah. So, that's what they did for me. They supported me. And I guess it took away some of the embarrassment, the embarrassing feeling away from, what I could have felt that night, because they still rallied around me afterwards.
So you've 13-year career, right? Yeah. So we can't talk about every single stop, but if we could kind of talk about your overseas experiences, your best overseas experiences, and then like I know now you're currently playing in the G League, you're
Yeah.
still on the pathway to the NBA. So can we kind of talk about your close brushes with the NBA up to this point, and then
Okay.
your best overseas experiences, if possible?
So my close brushes with the NBA, I don't know what to really say about them because I felt like I never really got a great chance to play in the NBA.
Okay.
It was never a situation where, it's Tre Kelley, it's such and such. We got one point guard spot left. We're gonna let these guys basically get in the Lions den and see who comes out of there. I was never put in that situation. Every time that I went to camp, I was the only point guard with the guys who were trying to make the team.
Okay.
So it was never me competing against somebody for a spot, which I was disappointed by. So I did come really, really close with Memphis Grizzlies and the Miami Heat, but it just didn't happen. For me, I've been through all these different things in life, and it all taught me to just be resilient and to always overcome whatever obstacles are put in my way. And that stuff, I never got discouraged by it. Though I wanted it badly, it was disappointing that these things didn't work out. I always just moved forward. I always moved forward. I wanted to work even harder. Those things tend to motivate me even more. So I would go overseas after those opportunities, and I would play much better basketball. I remember after Memphis, they released me, and I go over to China, and right off the plane, I got 54 points.
50 ball.
So yeah, so it was something that never discouraged me, man. I mean, like I said, I learned a lot throughout my life, and I can't ever feel like I'm discouraged about anything.
So at this point,
And
you're playing in the G League currently. You're still kind of on that
yeah,
pathway possibly to the NBA. Can you kind of like, even if you get a 10-day contract at this point in your career, what would that do for you personally?
personally, it would mean the
Mhm.
world. For me to even like you say, even if it's 10 days, I mean, it would mean the same thing as it would mean for me to get a 5-year contract. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Because I've worked hard at this thing. You're talking 24 years now. I started playing when I was 10, and for me to be able to really, I mean, I played some preseason games. I've been out there. I've scored some preseason points. But to be out there during the season, maybe to get a run out there, playing against whatever team, whatever players, and you know, being able to that would be achieving my goal, no matter what it looks like to other people. For me, that would be achieving my goal. I felt like that's maybe the only goal that I haven't accomplished throughout my career
Mm-hmm.
and throughout my life. Everything that I've put my hands on that I wanted to achieve, whether it was a season, a game, I've done it. And I feel the same way about this. I really think if I were to have a 10-day contract, I would turn it into 2.
Right.
And maybe even turn it into the rest of the season. That's how they do the 10-day
Because of your
contracts.
work ethic and your desire.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would be, the first one in the gym and the last one out every day, just like I am now. Nothing's changed with me in regards to my patterns and the things that I've come comfortable with in regards to my work ethic. And it would mean the world. It would mean the world to my family. I mean, just the other night I'm in DC. I heard they don't get a lot of fans there. The stewardess said, "All these people came here to see him." You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And they let my family on the court and everything. They did things that they wouldn't normally do in regards to the rules because they felt a lot of love in the gym. People who I didn't even know was coming to the game bought tickets just to come see me play. So, the city's always rallied behind me because of all that I've been able to do, but more so how I've carried myself doing it.
Right.
I mean, professional basketball player, I've been as professional as you could be when you're talking about that. I've worked extremely hard. You can't play 13 years and be 10 pounds lighter than you played at college, and be doing this. You know what I'm
You
saying?
changed some things, I guess, along the way, eating habits and.
Yeah, I've tried to basically reach my peak and stay at it as much as possible. Even like I said, playing the game in DC the other night, I'm making moves. The crowd is still going crazy again. I'm 34.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's still rallying behind me the way that they did.
When you were 15.
When we talked about the
Mm-hmm.
draft, we talked about not being drafted. I mean, the people still come to see me in the summer. Yeah, I mean, I had people inbox me the other night, said, "Man, you ain't let me know you were playing." You know what I'm saying? So, the city will always be behind me, and that's one thing that I wanted to do in regards to making it to the NBA, because I know how much it means to me. And I've always been a giver. I've always been a generous guy. And I know how much it would mean to everybody that has supported me over the years. I prayed for that. I prayed for them, just for them to experience, even if it's one night playing against the Wizards, playing with the Wizards. You never know. And to have that response and everybody come out, and watch me play an NBA game.
So, what was your favorite overseas experience that you probably had so far?
I've had a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Istanbul, Turkey has been very dear to me. I played 4 years in Turkey. I've played some really good basketball over there. Just last year, 2018, I mean, I averaged like 22 points, 8 assists, at the age of 33, 34. So, you know, they've accepted me, and they've honored me as a veteran, and they've rallied behind me as a leader too with the teams that I've played on. I played in China a couple of years, and being able to play against some of those NBA guys, who were just finishing their NBA stints, Stephon Marbury, and even guys like Smush Parker and Stromile Swift, Andre Emmett, Lester Hudson. Playing against those different kinds of guys who had played in the NBA, and I hadn't gotten a chance to, ending up playing well against those guys and even dominating some of those guys. That felt pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you have an upcoming project. So can you kind
Yeah.
of speak on that project, that documentary that you have coming?
Yeah. So the name of the documentary is Unbreakable Desire. The January 18th is the screening, and it's sort of a fundraiser also. And it'll basically tell my life story. We're doing a 6-part series to this documentary, and we'll show the first 2 parts at the screening on the 18th. Dunbar High School, where it kind of all started for me. They've accepted me as one of the alumnus, and allowing me to come in and hold something that's important. There'll be a couple of organizations there that are helping me insert this documentary into each high school in Washington, D.C., and allow it to help the youth learn how to, kind of maneuver through the Washington, D.C. area, and fight against their obstacles, and not be broken down by what all is coming at them in that age. And like I said, it'll tell my life story. I've been through a lot. My mom was murdered when I was a kid, and you know, my friends have been murdered, and I've had to go to a ton of funerals. I've lived in an atmosphere where you can be outside, and people are coming through trying to shoot the place up, drugs and violence, and just a certain way of living, plagues this area. And I'm happy to be able to even be here to tell the story, and be able to kind of teach through the story. My perspective in life has been very important for me, and I think the title of the documentary reflects everything. that I've stood for. You know, unbreakable desire, and that's self-explanatory, being a mindset that won't allow you to break away from what you believe in, break away from your desires. It won't, you know, going through hardship, going through tragedy, going through, you know, just obstacles in life that are honestly built to break us down sometimes, you know, and it not being the thing that breaks your desire down.
Right.
That's been important for me. You know, I've looked at tragedy and I've just stood tall. I've stood tall through it, and I've allowed myself to just continue to move on and still fight for my dreams and work hard for them. I think that's the most important thing. Some people,
I'm sorry.
yes, some people like to just lay it down and not work anymore. You know, getting fired from jobs. I've you know, in a sense, I played 13 years professionally, but I've been fired. You know, I've gone to those NBA camps and, you know, had to get the news about having to pack my locker up. And, you know, for me, that doesn't break me down. I mean, it's going to take more than that, if anything. You know, I don't know what it could take to actually break me down and to have me feeling like I can't, you know, move on anymore. So I want to teach that through the documentary.
So I know that only 2 parts of the documentary are going to be shown at the screening. Where can people see the entire documentary after the screening?
Yeah, so after the screening, we're attempting to set up TreKelley.com.
Okay.
And that'll be established pretty soon here with all of the information about the documentary. If there's a later date that the entire documentary will be on there, it'll be on TreKelley.com.
Okay.
And it'll allow us to just keep people posted about anything. We'll be posting clips of the documentary, of different things, different messages. This will serve also as like a, you know, basically a inspiration board where I will, you know, post quotes from myself, thoughts from myself, maybe even some basketball highlights. You know, I had some people come to the game the other day in Washington, D.C., and, you know, people were just still inspired, man. Asking me, how in the world am I still in shape? You know, asking me, you know what I'm saying? You know, just trying to figure it all out. And I mean, I like, you know, still being able to inspire people from that standpoint. You know, if that's still my purpose at this age, I mean, I'm fine with that, because I've done a lot in my career. We're sitting here talking about accolades and, you know, different things, and leading a conference and leading something in this stat. You know, 2-time DC Gatorade Player of the Year, 2-time All-Met, and, you know, no one has scored more points than me in DCIAA history.
So I want to ask you about that. Is that a real fact? Because we can't seem to find that. I was told that, but I can't find it anywhere.
So there was an article. I've been trying to actually find this article myself that had all of it on there. It was put out right in my senior year, and I think there was an interview that was made with me and Coach Lorenzo Roach.
Okay.
Because he'll definitely stamp that.
Because DCIAA isn't the best at keeping records. That's why I'm
I know that it's crazy that they do that. Because even my averages are off.
Right.
Even my averages are off. I know you said like 27. I think I was at like 29 both years.
See, I pulled that from the post, so it's probably off.
Yeah, closer to 30 both years. You said something like 3 times 40 points. Like, I've scored like 40 points like 20 times.
I think that might have been just in the senior year for the 40. But I think
I scored 40 more points in my junior year than I did in my senior year. But yeah, like I've been trying to get in touch with this woman, not just for that purpose, but I forgot her name, but she used to do all of the DCIAA work for the Washington Post. And she had a name like you know, she was like African or something like that. And she used to do these, you know, these stories on me all the time. And I thought that she would have most of the, you know, the information about everything. Because I was trying to find some old articles to put in to the documentary and find some old videos and stuff like that.
That stuff is becoming more and more rare as we move forward.
Yeah, that's crazy. sad to that's the case. Not just for my
Oh, just
sake,
for the history. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, just for the history, because I used to like looking up all the old stuff from the other guys.
So just going back to your screening real quick. So we know it's going to have some, the screening will have some very serious content, but there's also a lighter side of that, an entertainment aspect. And
Yep.
the documentary has a lot of serious content, but the event itself has a lighter side to it. There's an entertainment aspect. Can you talk on that? And also where tickets are still available, if tickets are still
Okay.
available?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a lighter aspect to the event. There's a lot of teaching, and there's a lot of sharing of my story through the documentary, of course, and that'll be the first segment of the event. And we will leave the theater and be able to celebrate my 35th birthday. We'll have a comedian, we'll have food, and backyard band will cap the night off with some homegrown music.
So, and where are tickets
So
still available?
Yeah, so
If people would like
you
to
can reach out to me at 202-378-3820 or my email, TreKelleyone@gmail.com. That's TreKelley1@gmail.com, or on any of my social media outlets, Instagram, TreKel1EY. That's Tre Kelley, but the second L in my name has a 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, Trey? It kind of went
Also
out for a
Twitter
second.
and Facebook. You can just search my name, and I can share the details about the tickets and the price and everything. This is definitely an event that people should want to be in attendance for. It's going to be a fun night. It's going to be a teaching night. It's going to be a lot of people in attendance. All the people that I've talked about that have supported me, they're going to support me for this. People are going to dress up nice. It's sort of gala style. Doesn't have to be too formal, but I would love people to come and put their best on and come and enjoy a special night.
So, documentary coming soon. You're still currently playing. How much left in the tank for Tre Kelley?
As a basketball player, I could play until I'm 40. My work ethic, I think, will take me there. I love to be in shape. I love the feeling of being able to compete, and I don't want anybody come talking about let's play one-on-one. They think they can get me. So.
No challenges.
I want to be able to answer that bell anytime. So, I think I can play professionally until I'm 40. But I think I'll play another 2 seasons, get to 15 total as a professional, and just kind of ride off into the sunset. A lot of.
Does it matter if you played domestically or internationally in those last 2?
I would love for my family and friends to be able to join me and be able to be around for those games. I think it's more so of a thing to just be physically playing the game professionally for 15 years. But I want to do it. It's a challenge for me to want to do it and do it successfully. Be able to really stand out and help my team win. So, I got a lot left in the tank, but I think 2 years are due. I have so many things going on off the court, from a business standpoint, and I'm trying to put all that stuff in motion and, build on that. Got a lot of people helping me, a lot of people kind of connecting the dots for me in regards to relationships. And, I think there's a lot of success out there for me on the basketball court and off the basketball court. I'm training kids during the summer times. I will have some basketball camps this summer coming up. Locally for sure. Yes,
in the DC area.
Definitely at Dunbar High School. I pretty much have access to the building. I've helped them with a lot of different things. I'm going to try to help them with more as you know, as we go. So they're open with me doing anything I want to do at the school. It's lovely to go in there and see my name up in the rafters. I mean, even when I go in there now, I still look at it every day. Something special. The school is special to me. So, I'll be doing a lot of different things at that school. Other things, there's been some college coaching talk coming up from different schools. Georgetown was one of them this summer. So that could be a possibility in the near future. But I'll still focus on, playing the games. I do have a couple of projects off the court that I can work on, no matter what, whether I'm playing or not. But I'll still be able to just focus on, being the best player I could be.
So, but after that, you're not going to just fade away from the game itself. Training, possibly coaching, doing a few things possibly at the school
Yeah, and
with
I'll
the
still be
youth.
playing. I'll
So
still
you
be playing in the summer leagues, as much as possible. I know they have, the Legends Coalition League where they, have the high schools playing against one another. That's something I'll probably play in. If I'll always have a team to play on in the Kenner League, and I still like to get up and down, so I'll still be playing. I mean, I love the game, so it might be crazy for me to be out there at 36, 37, but you will find me somewhere, using that spin move.
So you've been to, I think, 11 different countries, 13 years
Yeah.
as a pro. You see yourself coming back to the DC area for sure to stay after everything is over,
Absolutely,
or
man.
do you
I'm
see
not moving
yourself
nowhere. I mean, I understand it, 'cause, people talk about the cost of living, and people talk about
Uh-huh.
all this stuff, man. But I'm from that place, man. I can't see myself anywhere else. If I go
Yeah.
somewhere for short stints, I may, I like vacation, and I've been all around the world, and I don't mind going somewhere for a month or something like that. But man, I'm DC, man. I don't even want to move out to Maryland, to be honest with you.
Oh wow. Yeah, you're really
Yeah,
yeah.
I ain't say I'm
But
not gonna
that's
sit up here and
great.
say
That's
I'm gonna be
great.
in Northeast, or catch me in
No,
Brentwood. Yeah,
yeah, I
but you
understand
know
that.
what I'm saying. But I tell people now, they laugh about it, but that's where I'm gonna be, man. You're gonna always catch me, in the city. Like I said, whether it's training. If I do move, it'll be because of coaching or something like that. It won't be because I'm just moving to Charlotte or something like that.
just
Yeah, I
just
can't
because.
do it, man. I can't do it. So I always have a place in DC, and if I do, like I said, if I do move, it'll be because of work.